In this lesson, we are going to cover how to work with MockK Spies, relaxed mocks, and how to do a partial mocking. So after this one, I believe you will be able to cover 99% of your real-life scenarios from now on. So without any further ado, let's get to work. So let's start with relaxed mocks. But what does this term refer to? Well, long story short, relaxed mock is a mock that returns some value for all functions. So in other words, the value is returned even if we do not provide a stubbing. And to better understand that, as usual, let's introduce a simple example. Right mouse button on the Kotlin package, Kotlin class /file, and let's add part for examples. Shift plus F6 to rename examples. I made a typo, wonderful. And in there I would like to introduce the class called 5. Class 5, and this class should take one thing as the through the constructor private vol 1, and this will be 5.1 to better organize them. All right, we'll introduce that in a second. Class 5.1, and this class will have two functions, returning int value and returning string value. Fun returning int integer, and I would like this to return 10. Fun returning string value. It will be a string value, and let's sum string. Splendid. And our function to test will be invoking the returning int, and then return the string value from 5.1. So fun to test, and in there a string value. Let's open up brackets. 1 returning integer, and as a result return string value. So again, we invoke the first function from 5.1, we don't care about the result, and lastly we invoke this one and return the string value. And let me introduce quickly the test. So Alt plus Enter, create test, hit OK, and what we did previously, let's hide the project. Let's open up this on the right end. Again, personally, I like this view whenever I am working with tests. And in here, I would like to define a simple mock, all right? Private, let me delete this one line, vol 1 of type 5.1 equals mockk, and private vol 5 equals 5, and pass that value through the constructor. Let me fix the typo, private. Splendid. Following, let's add the test function. Test, not retention, test from Jupyter API, fun, should return mocked string. And in there, vol result equals 5, function to test, assert equals, let's go for mocked, and result. Ctrl-Alt-L to format. We can even add one stubbing. So let's go for the stubbing for our string value. Every one returning string returns mocked. And I'm pretty sure you know the result before I run this function. But to be sure, let's take a look at what we got. So the test is failing, and when we scroll down a bit, we'll see that no answer was found for the returning int. So even though we do not care about this value, well, we must have provided the stubbing for that, because otherwise MockK will be throwing exceptions. And as you may have guessed, a relaxed mock may help us in here a bit, but how we define it? Well, the only thing that we must do in MockK will be set the flag. Relaxed true, and now when I rerun the value, the test is passing. So how does it affect our mock? Again, thanks to the relaxed mock, a simple value will be returned from the returning int, and I can even show you that. So I will go for a breakpoint in here, run in the debug mode. Alright, let's go in there, evaluate expression, and let's try to run 1.returning int. Let's take a look. What does it return? We can see it returns 0. So as a simple value, we have things like 0 or empty strings, something like that. So as you can see, this may be a great help whenever you don't care about all the functions and you would like to focus on some particular ones. When working with annotations, you will use the, instead of mock relaxed, MockK annotation. So this is the annotation for the same result in annotation approach, all right? And before we head to the next part, I just wanted to mention that we have one more flag in here, because sometimes it may be more convenient to not provide the default values for whatever is returning, but if we only would like to mock our unit values, then there is a separate flag, relax union, true, so we would get rid of that. And when you go to the documentation, you can see that this allows creation with no specific behavior for unit function. So methods that return unit will not throw, while the other methods will still throw. And sometimes this is the case. For example, I don't know, you have some logger call and you mock that logger and you want to ignore that call, then this may be helpful. Splendid. Nextly, let's focus on the partial mocking. And to do so, we'll reuse the same example, def returning int and returning string value. So I'll get rid of this relax unit function, and when it comes to partial mocking, whenever you are dealing with mock, you don't need to do anything. Simply, sometimes you may want to deal with mock just 90% of time, just like with a casual mock. But if you would like to still invoke the actual function, then you can do something like that. Answers, call original. And when I go in here, of course, I must define, this is not a relaxed mock anymore, so I must define stabbing for returning int. Every one returning int returns 10. And as you may have guessed, right now, this call original will be invoking this function, someString. Let's copy this value, let's put it in here, and I expect this to be working fine. So again, in a moment we will see spies, but when it comes to call original, this approach is useful whenever something like that is required exceptionally or very rarely. You are mostly mocking the things, but one time you would like to call the actual method, then this is the partial mocking, to invoke the actual function call original. And as the last step, as I mentioned, let's take a look at the spies. So what are they? Well, they are a mix of real objects with mocks. So whenever we do not specify any stabbing, the actual function is invoked. So the main difference between spies and partial mocking we did in here is that the original function is invoked if we do not write anything. So by default, the original function is used. If you write the stabbing will be used. So spies are useful and the preferred approach whenever you are mixing both. But again, if this is happening exceptionally, use partial mocking. And how can we define spies? Well, using the spike function. So let's take a look. Instead of MockK, I'll use the exact same example. Instead of MockK, I'll use spike. And this way, the default constructor for 5.1 will be invoked. And when I get rid of these values and run the test, you will see that this will be working. All right? And now when I define some stabbing, every one returning string returns. Let's go for empty value. When I fix assert equals shift plus F10, well, it is working fine. So you can see, whenever you want to mix both approaches, then you can use spies. Additionally, when dealing with spec, if you do not want to use the default constructor, you must provide the actual instance. So 5.1 instance. This is how it will be working. When you go with only spike, this function, the default constructor is used. This one, you pass the instance. Nevertheless, not the instance will be used, but underneath the copy of this 5.1 will be used. Let's run this once again. Wonderful. So Lastly, again, spies are actual objects with mocking capabilities. I would call it this way. And that's all for this lesson. Great work, by the way. So let's head to the next one.